Hello and welcome to all of our online attendee friends. Good to see you this fine and beautiful Sunday morning. Our forum this morning is called How Should the Beloved Community Respond to a Mental Health Crisis Among Members? What a great and important question. And join us this morning to hear from congregation members who have personally experienced mental health issues. Rubye Wallan, Andrea Rose, and Destry Irwin will share their perspectives on what is most helpful and how we as individuals and a faith community can provide support. So without further ado, please give it up and welcome our guest today.
Well, it's a big name or a big title, and you're not going to get all that information today, I promise you. What's going to happen today is Andrea Rose, Destry Irwin, and Rubye Wallan are going to tell you our stories. And this isn't all of what's going to go on. There's going to be another forum. There's going to be another forum where we talk about individual mental illnesses. We do have a group where we get together. UUCD is going to have a nice support system for those of us with mental illnesses. We will be sharing how we would like to be embraced, and all of you can talk to us. Destry and I are mentors. We do have a mental health team. Forrest and Forrest Keeling and Bonnie. Ferris Keeling.
Although after the Forrest Gump movie, I'm happy to be called that.
Well, he'll go for Forrest just because of Forrest Gump. But anyway, Forrest and Bonnie are our you know what, I'm really blanking. This scares the heck out of me. Are our professionals, and Destry and I are peers. So questions, and if people want to talk, we're here. So I am going to introduce Andrea Rose. She's one of our newer people. So let's have her come up.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Andrea Rose. And actually, I don't know if I've told you, Rubye, but I use they, them pronouns now. So I guess I'll just share a little bit about myself and how my mental health issues sort of developed over the course of my life. Also, I just kind of want to acknowledge that I know most of you are probably on the same page as me with this, but my personal belief is that everybody struggles with mental health issues at some point in their lives, whether they recognize and acknowledge that or not. And that was the case for me. Like for a long time, I didn't recognize my own mental health issues. I grew up in a working class family. We didn't have a lot always. For a large portion of the time, our house was heated with just like wood. So I would come home from school and make wood fires, which is kind of unusual in this day and age. And then I grew up with someone who suffers from substance abuse issues. I should also mention, is it okay with everyone if I speak about substance abuse and trauma? Okay. He didn't really start drinking in my lifetime until I was about 13. And then it became pretty extreme. So I would see him he would be passed out in the middle of the walkway between my house and my grandparents' house. And I would go with my mom and bring him back home, and he would be calling her names the entire time. So I think that has had an impact on me for sure. Then as a young adult, I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do. My parents really encouraged and pushed me to go to college. So I started out at the University of Arizona, but I left there after a semester because I knew I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was very expensive. So yeah, I struggled for a few years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I tried UMD, really like just didn't know. So I ended up marrying someone when I was 21. I lived in Isabella for about 5 years with this person. And I had 2 kids. Both my pregnancies were planned. I had my first child when I was 22, and that was extremely traumatic as well. And many of you may know that I'm an RN now. And I definitely see medical trauma in a lot of my patients. So I think it's something that we don't talk about enough. But I had to have a C-section with my first child. And that was bad enough because I really didn't want to have one. And this is at a local hospital. Then to make matters worse, the epidural wore off right when I was going down for my C-section. In the elevator, a doctor said to me, "Oh, which one is this for you?" I said, "It's my first." He laughed at me. Then I get to the operating room. And because I was so emotional, crying, I asked for a tissue. So the anesthesiologist held the box out to me, said, "Take it. Why can't you get it? Why can't you get it?" It was because the anesthesia was working properly. He used that as a test. So I was almost drowning in my own snot. So I don't remember much of the first 6 months of my elder child's life because I really didn't know what had happened to me. I was dealing with a physical recovery and I had no idea how to grapple with that experience. Not to mention having overbearing grandparents-in-law checking in on me while I was still in my pajamas every day. House a mess. And then a few years on, well, not even about a year on, I decided, this guy I'm with, he drinks all the time. He's driving drunk, and no matter how much I tell him, he won't listen to me. So he's either going to kill himself or somebody else. And then it's going to be up to me to support my family. And so I decided to get my nursing degree. So it took me about 3 years total. Almost all of that time I was driving from Isabella to Duluth multiple times a week. But it was an experience that I really value. And I would recommend Lake Superior College to anybody. So I had my second child after the first semester of nursing school. And he was, I don't know, he really just kept me going through a lot of it. And then in the summer of 2017, my husband raped me. And that was when I decided that I was going to leave him. However, I stayed with him for a period of months. For a while, I was self-medicating using alcohol, not extensively, but I would drink like every night just to calm down. And then I started seeing a therapist, and she recommended I start medication. So I started an SSRI, and it changed my life. It was very helpful for me at that time. So my anxiety with like speaking with people, performing things like practical skills tests at school became much more easy for me. I could actually think and speak and do things, whereas before I would be just like a trembling mess. So that really helped me for a number of years. As I moved into my professional career, what I believe now that I struggled with a lot is living up to other people's expectations of like what it means to be a professional, like how many hours you should be working, and things like that. So I would take on more than was realistic for me to be successful and for my family to be successful. So that's one of my main things now is like work shouldn't be our number one priority. So right before the pandemic, I started working for a youth residential treatment facility. And so that was also traumatic because I was somebody who was supposed to be helping people and I didn't feel like I could help people in that role. Yeah, so then after the pandemic mostly was winding down, I'd taken a break sort of from work for a few months. Had a new job lined up at Essentia to work in the hospital. And I went to visit my parents one day. We got in an argument, my father and I. He said a racial slur, so I impulsively and very regretfully slapped him across the face with my day planner. He punched me in the face. I responded instinctively and I punched him back. And before I knew it, he was dragging me by my hair and trying to drown me in a kiddie pool. He threatened me after that, after everything got away from him. I was trying to leave with my kids. And he said, I should take you out to the back 40, which if you don't know, that means he wanted to kill me. So the police came, but I refused to go to the emergency department. I just wanted to get home because as much as I wish that I had gone in now, that's just how trauma works. Like I wasn't making any sense. I needed to get out of there. So I left. And then I didn't really deal with that. Like there were legal things that were happening, but I just decided to start at Essentia as planned. So I did. And that was really difficult because of just the chaos of the floor setup. It had been run by the float pool for a long time, and now they're trying to hire more staff. So that was a mess. But ended up getting COVID and then long COVID, and then an argument between me and my partner kind of pushed me over the edge. That was last spring. So I went to, I called everywhere, looking for help. You know, there's nothing available right away. But I wasn't actively suicidal. So eventually I found a placement with the adult partial hospitalization program with Essentia. And so I did 3 weeks of that. I had to stop everything else that I was doing. And I did, in the course of that, determine that my relationship with my employer was actually abusive, is how I would put it. And I think that's the case for a lot of people and a lot of healthcare workers, because the employer knows that you're going to do your best no matter what. So they're going to put more on you than they know is reasonable. So I left there without honoring the contract. So I'm kind of blacklisted there, but yeah, anyway, that was the adult partial program was really helpful. It introduced me to dialectical behavioral therapy, which I had never heard of before, but they showed me that and I was like, this is amazing. This should be taught in high school because it can help anyone be a better communicator, take care of yourself better. Like it helps in literally every area of life. So I've been doing DBT skills group every week for almost a year now, as well as my individual therapy, which is DBT therapy, as well as trauma processing, which mainly I use accelerated recovery therapy, which is similar to EMDR with the bilateral stimulation. And it has been helping. So now I've designed my life to put myself and my children as a priority. So that means I don't try to work a full-time job. So I'm committed to working 1 time a week, as well as once a month for somewhere else. And I just started as an on-call role that I will be filling soon. So I guess in terms of like how I want to be treated, or like my thoughts on how people with mental health issues could be treated better. I don't think anyone is ever like intentionally like making people feel othered. It's just like little things. So for example, when I would go to visit my grandpa, now remember he was born in 1926, so and he's lived in Knife River, Minnesota for a very long time. So he would ask me about work, and he would talk about how much money I could be making. And that was really hard, and still is. And I know it's hard for other people too. So that's one thing I just like. It's a typical question that we ask people, like, oh, what do you do for work? Or like, what do you do? So maybe we can just ask like, what's really important to you, or something like that instead. And then also like when people disclose, it can be like really hard. Like if they're disclosing some trauma or something that's just like really difficult for them. Sometimes without even knowing, we have a shocked expression on our faces. So trying to be mindful about that is helpful, I think. And then, yeah, and as well as work, also education ties in with that. Because like that's, like to me, I've like in the past placed like a high degree of importance on formalized education, but okay. But yeah, ties in with work. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Destry Irwin. I have a few brief remarks about what helped me and a few other things. First of all, when I first came to Duluth in 1986, I was living in a halfway house called Arrowhead House West. Later on, quite a few years later, I also lived at another halfway house called Carlson Hall. My faith community is my family. Without them, I would not be where I am today. I was in the psych ward the last time back in 2002. So when I went in, I could fill out a form saying, I don't want to hear from so-and-so. So I wrote down my whole family, and my parents wanted contact, but I did not want that. So Bonnie and Ferris Keeling kept in contact with my parents, and Julie Morgan kept in contact with my sister Kelly, because I knew they needed to know that I was okay, but I couldn't do that for my own mental health. So once it came time to be discharged, rather than going to a halfway house, we created a caring circle. And I got to choose who I wanted in my caring circle and what I wanted help with. And so it was an agreement with the doctor, the psychiatrist, the caring circle, and myself. And my part of the bargain was I was to go to outpatient therapy. And so what that meant was I was able to go back to my apartment and my cat. I didn't lose everything I had. because the only other option was a halfway house. So fortunately, because of the faith community, I was given a chance. And the main things that I wanted help with was doing laundry. Not that I can't do my laundry, but in the building where I was, it was rather difficult. And grocery shopping. And to this day, people from the church take me grocery shopping. So one thing, people have asked me if it's scary when I get sick. And the answer is no, because when you start to get sick, it's slow. Things change slowly. And then all of a sudden, you're in the psych ward. And then when it gets scary is when you're getting your meds regulated again and you're getting back to who you were. And you look back and you realize what you've been doing, and that's when it's scary. That's when it's scary. And then I have a poem that I wrote, and I am going to read it through twice. So I was in a park in Moorhead, Minnesota, walking on the back of a dragon, not visible to others. This I did not know. Looking back, I was living in a physical and a spiritual reality, both valid. In time, I came to realize that I was in a physical body with a physical reality, which is what most people know about. And to be able to participate in those multiple realities, I had to learn again how to function, quote unquote, normally in this physical realm. Part of that was giving up hearing thoughts of people. I made the choice that I did not want to hear people's thoughts. Having a mental illness has allowed me to be open to different spiritual realities. However, I am okay with being guided in the spiritual realities. When synchronicity happens in my world, it is because beings in other realities are stepping in to guide me to the best actions for me for that place in time. I count my blessings because I can have control over voices, which most people with paranoid schizophrenia aren't able to have. I am a very important person. I have value beyond the physical. For me to be of value to the world, I need to have a clear head in this present reality. When interference happens from people who impose their realities on me, this does not allow collaboration of the various life forces. So I have to listen to my own gut and to those powerful beings who are a part of and guiding me in my life on all levels. Addendum: all things helpful to keep me functioning in this physical reality, plus other realms of being, are consistently taking my medications, exercising, eating healthy, enjoying friendships, sleeping, cooking, doing laundry, banking, cleaning my apartment, making a grocery list, grocery shopping, taking the bus, working part-time, writing poetry, having a support group in and outside of my church community, and having a companion cat. I'll read it through one more time. I was in a park in Moorhead, Minnesota, walking on the back of a dragon, not visible to others. This I did not know. Looking back, I was living in a physical and a spiritual reality, both valid. In time, I came to realize that I was in a physical body with a physical reality, which is what most people know about. And to be able to participate in those multiple realities, I had to learn again how to function, quote unquote, normally in this physical realm. Part of that was giving up hearing thoughts of people. I made the choice that I did not want to hear people's thoughts. Having a mental illness has allowed me to be open to different spiritual realities. However, I am okay with being guided in the spiritual reality. When synchronicity happens in my world, it is because beings in other realities are stepping in to guide me to the best actions for me for that place in time. I count my blessings because I can have control over voices, which most people with paranoid schizophrenia aren't able to have. I'm a very important person. I have value beyond the physical. For me to be of value to the world, I need to have a clear head in this present reality. When interference happens from people who impose their realities on me, this does not allow collaboration of the various life forces. So I have to listen to my own gut and to those powerful beings who are a part of and are guiding me in my life on all levels. Addendum. All things helpful to keep me functioning in this physical reality, plus other realms of being are consistently taking my medications, exercising, eating healthy, enjoying friendships, sleeping, cooking, doing laundry, banking, cleaning my apartment, making a grocery list, grocery shopping, taking the bus, working part-time, writing poetry, having a support group in and outside of my church community, and having a companion cat.
Now you can see why she was my mentor. All those things she listed on the bottom are things that she taught me. I'm going to take just a second here. I'm going to yell because I have some information. Yeah, let me see which one of these is mine. Yeah, that one's got stuff written on it. Okay. This is really scary for me because I'm going to share with you my story, and it's a lot of this stuff is stuff that I don't talk about. As with Andrea and with Destry, childhood was, I don't have a strong enough adjective, it's not a swear word. So I'm not going to list experiences because I don't want to go there. It's just too hurtful. So I'm going to take you on a journey of how I came through that. Okay. To explain what happened is I couldn't deal with that childhood. So what I did was I blocked it. I have black holes. I have a lot of black holes. Now, some of them I have been able to work with. In the last year and a half, 2 years, I have been able to, you want to pass that around just in case, to delve into and look at some experiences, because before I couldn't see the positive things. I didn't remember things about my children's experience. They would tell me things and behaviors that I had that were horrible. And my daughter once got really upset and she said, "Mom, you don't remember that." And she was really hurt and angry. So it was important for me to start remembering. Okay, so I'm going to skip the childhood stuff. Okay, so I'm from a family, I'm one of 5, I have 4 brothers. And I've told you about bipolar a bunch of times, but now I want to tell you about borderline personality disorder. And I think maybe Andrea was describing a bit of that, because dialectical behavior therapy is the therapy for borderline personality disorder. You have to have that diagnosis to get DBT. Okay, so go through childhood. I want to go to college. Well, there's no way. I have 4 brothers. My mom raised us alone. So I decided, okay, I'm going to the Navy. And the reason I chose the Navy was because they had the cutest uniforms. I mean, by far. Okay, well, here's this kid that has taken care of her brothers for many years, the house, because mom works, she's a bus driver. So, I mean, I have no experience really outside the house. So, in order to get out of the house, I split into two 18-year-olds, the twins. Okay, so this one is Frankie, and she kept the main personalities that I have, which are the nurturing, caring, loving, take care of everybody in the world, especially kids. I've always been that kind of person. Okay. And then there's Chris, as in Little Miss Chris. Okay, and she was the other half. And she was the one that would get out there, and she was competent, and she was funny, and she made friends, and she was just all that. Okay, so with these two personalities, I was able to go into the Navy. I was able to succeed. I was a radioman, communications tech, and as with all my life, sometimes I succeeded into almost excellence, and other times I crashed and burned, because I also had bipolar. That comes out about when you're 20. But it was up and down, just like my whole life. But I lived as Prison Frankie until I was 50. And you can imagine my home life was really, really hard. When you have bipolar and borderline personality disorder, life is difficult. Now, if you look at the pamphlet I gave you, it'll tell you about biosocial theory of borderline personality disorder. Oops. Borderline personality disorder is something that you are born with. You just are more susceptible to intense feeling, to feeling things more often, and you act out your emotions. Like out of the blue, you'll just get mad about something that others just wouldn't get mad at, or you'll decide, oh, one time I was with my mother at one of her aunt's assisted living homes, and I just busted out in song. I mean, that was okay, wasn't it? The thing is, it was hard for me. Like, there's no way I could think and say, well, maybe that isn't really appropriate. I mean, it's appropriate for me. Lots of things were appropriate for me. It was never anything bad. It just wasn't the way other people did things. And the hard part of this was, I'm of you guys' generation, and think back to that time. It was children were supposed to be seen and not heard. Parents were controlling, adults were controlling, which is what I love about here. You see the kids running around and doing whatever. It's freedom. We didn't have that. And if you have a kid that is different, is neurodivergent, and you sit on them really, really hard, and they get hurt, like I'm just over a bassinet and I am adoring my little cousin because I love kids. And Dad says, don't mess with your cousin. And I wasn't messing with him. I was so hurt. I was hurt to my very core. And he was wrong. I still get really upset when somebody criticizes and they're wrong. I mean, I can just feel this in my chest. Anyway, okay, so with invalid social environment, when someone tells you that your emotions are invalid, weird, wrong, or bad, it hurts you to the core. I mean, a lot of kids would get over it. I didn't. So I ended up being a very hurt and angry person. Much later, I did learn that adults were doing the best they can. It was the time, you know, whatever, but that's a lot of getting over in a lot of years. Social environment reinforces out of control emotions and actions. Boy, I guess, but I got stepped on. So I didn't get to act out. So what I did was I internalized and I became very ill. I learned to hide, for one thing, which is why Person Frankie came along. I mean, I could switch back and forth between those and I could succeed. But when, and this is part of the bipolar, when I was not feeling good, when I was just crashing big time, I disappeared, sometimes for months at a time. And I would crash my life. Money-wise, home-wise, however wise, which is real normal for both bipolar and borderline personality disorder. So that's kind of how that worked. And of course, relationships, home relationships, very difficult. I told you about my kids. My husband, my father was a very angry person. Of course, that's where the bipolar came from. I married somebody that was very angry. So that just perpetuated the whole thing. This is where the anger went. Now, I did not physically harm myself. I did not take pills. I did not cut myself. I did not drink. When it got really, really horrible, I would lay in my bed like this, and I called it cocooning. There was pain all around me, but I was fortunate. In 1994, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and that's where all that art comes from. I had counselors that really, really helped me, but I was open. I wanted help so bad. But the problem is that insurance problems. If you didn't have insurance, your support fell away. So that was an up and down for many years as well. Since I've been in here in Duluth, I have become well. I mean, completely well. I told you about my 3 pillars. The church, for sure. And since I'm looking through the packet, what I'd like you to look at now is this particular handout. It's a DBT house. And I'm going to describe DBT real quick. Okay. In essence, when you come into DBT, you've crashed. Usually you come into it from the partial program. And we call it hell. You start in hell. And you start to try and get some control over your life, over something, anything. And then after you start to learn the skills, you start to try and deal with some of that terrible, terrible pain. And then the second stage, you get in touch with some positive, the skills start to work. So you start to be able to see the light at the tunnel, like maybe I can get somewhere, maybe I can start to heal. And then after that, stage 3, the main goal of DBT is to build a life worthwhile. You start to build your life worthwhile. That's skills, that's group, that's counseling. And I still see a counselor. I see one once a week. One of them's an intern. Now I see a counselor to help me monitor my bipolar. And I told him I need to stay in DBT. I'm not going to go off and try to live on my own. I need to stay with it. It's how I stay well. It's one of my pillars. So I have my regular counselor that I've had for about 7 years. And then I talk to an intern on off weeks. I actually help train interns and new counselors. I get to talk about DBT. And so it's really good for me, and that teaches them DBT that they don't know. So we have an arrangement. The really cool thing about DBT is that you can reach the top of the house. And that's spiritual fulfillment, expanded awareness, and peak experiences. That's where I am. I'm well. Okay, well, about a year ago, I was staying in a group. There's 2 groups. There's beginning DBT, which takes a year or more. And I've been practicing DBT since 2008. And I completed the group many, many years ago. And then there was a second group, and it's called RO, or Radically Open DBT. And it's for overly controlled people, which I am and I'm not. But I needed a group. I need to stay with DBT. Well, I didn't get out of it, even though it wasn't, I was supporting others, which is what happens, like Destry supported me. So I was doing more supporting than I was getting support. But then along comes compassionate communication. And so almost a year ago, I found out about compassionate communication from Sue Daly. And it took the place of my group. So I don't have to worry about being so far ahead of the DBT group. My needs are filled with compassionate communication. And I talked to my counselor, and she said this is the best thing going for me to branch out and to stay well. It's been wonderful. You're gonna laugh. I have accomplished, my karma is clear. It's been fun talking to my kids, and I've dealt with some conflicts. I just love this stuff. I'm going to do it again next year, and I will stay in it because it's also filling my DBT need. So I put this on the back of your thing. I told you about the basis of DBT, that is to build a life worth living, and with compassionate communication, it's beneath every behavior there is a feeling, and beneath each feeling is a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with cause, not the symptom. And that is the most important thing for those of us that have mental illnesses and behavior. Oh, I forgot to show you this one. This is where I was a couple of years ago. I was still hiding. I still had a mask. You could see part of me. I am present, but I gotta tell you real funny. When I was a kid, I was sure I was an alien because I didn't think like others. I didn't feel like others. And that was the only thing that I could be. Now, I was born into my family because you could really tell it was Nesky from anybody else, but I was still an alien. And going along with that one, this is the other side. This is the high side. I mean, things just go through my head like colors. I mean, they're all over the place. It's like a whirlwind in my head and it's so colorful and it's fun. And I never had to do marijuana because I was high all the time. When I wasn't high. Except when I wasn't high. Okay, if anybody has any questions of any of us, maybe we can pull Andrea back over here.
Yeah, and
And-
before that, let me just invite all of us again on behalf of Andrea Destry and you, Ruby, for your vulnerability, your courage for sharing your story today, and just being here so open with us. So thank you. But I have a microphone and I'm happy to run. We have about 5 minutes before I'll start transitioning to the service, and obviously after today, we can have a continued conversation, but who would like to start us off for Q&A? I see a hand back here.
First of all, thank you, all three of you. It is a remarkable presence of oneself to be able to speak. And in this, as you probably you all consider a safe group. So my question perhaps might be to you, Brett. We record these, or we sometimes can access these. Is this going to be available that way? And do we have a release from the three speakers to let that happen? Because I really try to be respectful of the power of being able to share, but also to be somewhat guarded about misuse of what you share.
So we did talk ahead of time and we can connect again afterwards. We have every week, we have our YouTube playlist. And so anyone interested, if you can't find it, it's on our UUCD YouTube channel. But that is the plan as of now, and I'm happy to edit out any part of it too. So I will work with the three speakers. We have checked in ahead of time, and whatever you feel comfortable with, we'll have available for those that would like to return or couldn't make it today, if that's all right. Who else has questions? I'll just ask a question then, and then I'll hand it to you, Ferris. How did it feel sharing your story today? That was so big of all three of you. What was going through your minds?
I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking, obviously, but I'm thankful for this opportunity because I know that these type of like traumatic experiences and just going through struggles is so common, and it's still kind of like a taboo subject for a lot of people. So I'm just hoping that like more people can feel comfortable just talking about their real lives.
In the past, I have spoken to students and stuff, and this coming fall, I'm going to be speaking at Lake Superior College and the behavioral health area with nursing students.
Well, I have to give Sally Ockwood Larson the credit for the forums. She came up with the idea. She was going to be I was just going to help her put it together, but a lot of things came up in her life, so she couldn't. So we definitely want to give her credit. It was scary, but I really wanted to start something so that, because I have found UUCD to be so important to my becoming healthy and to becoming one of my pillars, and I feel cared for, I feel supported, and I've talked a lot of times about my mental illness, and I know that we can have more supports here because y'all care so much. I was glad to do this. In fact, I feel such gratitude for all of you and for the opportunity to do this.